Here are detailed, robust, multifaceted actions capturing America's challenges. 1. Power struggles and globalist influence. A new economic coalition led by global elites manipulates the stock market, causing inflation and supply chain collapses, all while using the World Health Organization, WHO, to introduce new policies that weaken American sovereignty. How do these power plays divide the nation between those who trust the system and those who see through it? 2. The WHO and the pandemic reset. The WHO enforces a sweeping global health treaty, granting it unprecedented control over national health policies. America is torn between compliance and resistance, leading to riots and civil unrest. Does the government follow WHO mandates, or do rebel governors break away to protect their states? 3. Digital surveillance state and censorship. Under the pretext of public safety, new digital ID systems linked to health status are introduced. Conspiracy theories spread that the ID system will soon integrate with a social credit score, pushing America closer to a surveillance state. What happens when the government begins arresting domestic extremists who challenge the system? 4. Economic collapse and dollar crisis. America's dollar is facing collapse after countries began adopting a new global digital currency controlled by international elites. The government is freezing bank accounts and limiting withdrawals, pushing everyday Americans into chaos. How does the average family navigate this new economy, and which underground networks rise to replace traditional markets? 5. Media manipulation and disinformation. War's major media outlets are exposed as having secret ties to globalist groups, controlling the narrative to promote conformity. Independent journalists disappear or are branded as terrorists. How do whistleblowers get their stories out in a nation where the media is part of the conspiracy? 6. WHO-backed medical tyranny. The WHO introduces mandatory gene therapy injections, promising protection from future pandemics. Those who refuse are denied access to basic services. Conspiracy theories spread that the injections contain tracking technology or sterilization agents. How do underground movements form to resist these policies, and what sacrifices must they make? 7. Civil war and secession movements. Disenfranchised states push for secession after the federal government enforces WHO policies and aligns with globalists, creating a new civil war in America. What happens when militia groups in Texas and Florida rise, determined to form a breakaway republic? 8. Government corruption and globalist puppets. Leaked documents reveal that globalist organizations have bribed key American politicians to ensure laws that erode the Constitution. How does a lone FBI agent who discovers this conspiracy survive when his agency is compromised? 9. Technocratic control and AI tyranny. A global AI system managed by tech giants is starting to control infrastructure, healthcare, and communications networks worldwide, including America. Those who criticize AI are labeled as security threats. Will the American people adapt to life under AI control, or will a resistance movement spark a revolution? 10. The mark of the beast and spiritual warfare. Religious groups claim that new technologies, like biochip implants, fulfill the biblical prophecy of the mark of the beast. Society begins to splinter between those who embrace these innovations and those who see them as the fulfillment of apocalyptic prophecy. What happens when an underground Christian leader rises, uniting believers against the government and global elites? 11. Militarization of domestic law enforcement. Federal agencies begin militarizing local police to combat the rising tide of resistance movements against WHO mandates and economic control. Citizens are declared enemies of the state for even minor infractions. What happens when veterans and former military officers unite to fight against government tyranny? 12. Mass migration and border chaos. Waves of refugees, encouraged by globalist policies, flood the American borders, overwhelming local resources and spurring clashes between migrants and citizens. Rumors spread that NGOs connected to global elites are organizing the migration to destabilize the country. Will the government side with global humanitarian efforts, or will it protect its borders and risk international sanctions? 13. Green energy policies and controlled collapse. Under pressure from global organizations, the government suddenly transitions to green energy, outlawing fossil fuels overnight. The result is nationwide blackouts and a transportation crisis. How do Americans survive as the country falls into darkness? 14. Psychological manipulation and mass control. Global elites use psychological operations to incite fear, control public opinion, and distract people from the real issues. Virtual reality programs are introduced to keep people compliant, offering them safe spaces while society collapses. Who wakes up from the illusion, and what does it take to escape? 15. Agricultural sabotage and food shortages. Farmers are paid by globalist organizations to destroy crops, creating an artificial food shortage. Conspiracy theories arise that lab-grown meat is being introduced to control the food supply. How do rural communities fight back, and what role does black market agriculture play in their survival? 16. The Great Reset and Post-American World Order. America's economy and political structure are deliberately dismantled by global elites who want to build a post-American world order. The remaining citizens must decide whether to embrace the Great Reset or fight for the old republic. What does the New World Order look like, and who ultimately benefits from it? 17. Cultural Marxism and the attack on tradition. American schools and media become battlegrounds for cultural Marxism, promoting ideologies that attack traditional values, the nuclear family, and patriotism. Conspiracy theories spread that these movements are part of a globalist plot to weaken national identity. How does a small-town teacher resist, knowing the price of dissent could be their career, or worse? 18. Social division and manufactured crises. Political and social divisions are deliberately stoked by globalist think tanks, creating tribalism and infighting that keep Americans distracted from the real threat. What happens when people see through the lies and unite against the puppet masters? 19. The role of Big Pharma and health control. Big pharma companies, in partnership with the WHO, push mandatory drug programs for all citizens, backed by media campaigns that label dissenters as anti-science extremists. How does one family fight back after experiencing devastating side effects from these treatments? 20. Weaponizing climate change narratives. The government introduces emergency climate policies restricting freedoms, limiting travel, and rationing energy. Critics claim these policies are not about the environment, but about establishing globalist control over every aspect of life. What happens when evidence emerges that the climate crisis was exaggerated to justify these measures?